Good morning. So for today's video, I decided to do something a little bit different. During yesterday's training session, I noticed that I was experiencing shoulder popping in my left shoulder. Now, this is a very common experience during horizontal or vertical pressing motions. It typically happens due to one of two things. Usually someone has some type of scapular restriction. In other words, some of the tendons in the rotator cuff are impinged, which keep the shoulder from being able to move and rotate properly. Or I could have had a tendon in the anterior aspect of my shoulder just rolling over the head of my humerus during the eccentric phase or the downward phase of the bench press. Either way, it resulted in some subsequent inflammation, which throughout the rest of the day, especially last night, resulted in some tenderness and my acromin and some pain going through flexion and some rotation motions. So I decided to use today's training session in order to address the issue that I'm experiencing. Now, musculoskeletal pain is largely sensory related. So being able to achieve certain ranges of motion in joints that are previously restricted, or being able to hold certain postures for an extended period of time, tend to help alleviate the pain response that most people experience through exercise or through lack of range of motion, whether that's immobility, just not moving through the day, sedentary lifestyle, and things of that nature. I'm going to begin this session, as every session should, with a proper warm-up. Now, because of this particular issue and because I'm focusing on rehabilitation today, I'm going to be starting with tissue mobilization. First, starting with a sensory focus, and then I'm going to be getting into a movement focus. For the sensory focus, I'm going to be using a foam roller, targeting my rhomboids, and then for my lateral deltoid and for my pectoralis major, I'll be using a percussion instrument device. In this case, it'll be a theragun. After that, I'm going to be getting into tissue mobilization utilizing bands. So in order to hit my rhomboids, kind of my middle and lower trap as well, I'm going to make sure I'm going to hug myself as much as possible. I'm going to try and get my hips equal to my shoulders, moving nice and slow. I'm going to get the center of my back to get that middle lower trapezius. I'm also going to roll to the side to make sure I really target that left side. It's important that I put as much pressure as I can stand with the discomfort. For the tissue mobilization with a movement focus, I'm going to be doing 4 different exercises. Now, with each of these, I'm going to be setting a metronome to about 50 beats per minute. This is just to ensure that my concentric and eccentric phases of each motion take the same amount of time. That way I'm not allowing any of the bands to pull me forward because they have variable resistance. And I don't want to lack the internal support during these motions. So these 4 exercises, be focusing on the serratus anterior, doing some scapular protraction. Then we're going to go to the lower trapezius. On the lower trapezius, we're going to be focusing on some prone external rotation. The third exercise is going to be the middle trapezius. For the middle trapezius, I'm going to be doing some chest-supported rowing. And then on the 4th exercise, it'll be for my rhomboids. For my rhomboids, I'm going to be doing what I consider a supinated supinated horizontal abduction. And you'll see what that looks like when we get there. For the scapular protraction, you can do this on the floor, you can do this with kettlebells, you can even do this supinated if you need to regress. Because I have parallettes, I'm going to use them. So I'm going to start in a front leaning rest or plank position. And basically I'm going to push away as much as I can, creating that kind of cat back stretch, and then returning back to that starting position. And again, I'm going to do this on a cadence of 50 beats per minute. Lower trapezius, we'll be doing some chest supported or prone external rotation. So with that, I'm going to be on my bench, bring my elbows to approximately 90 degrees. I'm going to be focusing on externally rotating the humerus under control. Again, this is very important here to try and maintain that cadence. For the third movement in the middle trapezius. In this case, I'm going to be focusing on a chest supported row. We'll be hitting some of the rhomboids here as well. Alright, for this last movement, focusing on the rhomboids, we're doing a supinated horizontal abduction. So what I've done is I've placed a band above me, in this case in a barbell in my squat rack. I put it in the nape of my elbow, and I have that hand behind my head. I'm simply going to, while matching that cadence, horizontally abduct my shoulder until my elbow touches the ground, and then bring it back to that starting position. And I'm going to continue to do this for the prescribed repetitions you see in the details of this. Now, getting into the three main movements of this training session, we're going to be doing a bent over row. In this case, I'm going to be using a neutral grip row just to make it a lot easier on the shoulder. Then I'm going to get into a prone row where I'm going to be laying with my belly on the ground, arms overhead, and then trying to retract my scapula as I try and go through shoulder extension simultaneously. And the last movement is going to be a chest supported reverse fly. Again, really just trying to work on the rotation of that scapula, trying to get the rotator cuff out of the impinged state and just trying to get a little bit more range of motion in that posterior side of my shoulder blade. Bring the session to a close, as with all sessions, with some type of cool down. In this case, I'm going to be focusing on postural holds or isometric positions, 4 of them. The first one is going to have the shoulder in extension and rotation, putting the hand in the small of the back. I'm also going to have a band at an anchor point behind me wrapped around the clavicular head of my pectoralis major, just kind of pulling that humerus more posterior. The second position I'm going to be getting into is going to be a shoulder depression, which I try to do throughout this entire session, as you may read in the notes below. I'm trying to keep my shoulder from elevating. I'm going to just add some weight, in this case a kettlebell, on one side, and I'm just going to allow that kettlebell to depress my shoulder, and I'm going to hold that for an extended period of time. Alright, for this third movement, I'm going to be doing an isometric hold using a seated row. I'm going to be sitting on the ground using a resistance band. I'm going to flex the elbow, extend the humerus, and retract my shoulder blades. I'm going to hold that concentric position. I'm going to hold it into that position for an extended period of time. The fourth and final recovery movement is going to be an isometric hold of the scapular protraction that we started the session with. So very similar to what you saw me do on the parallettes at the very beginning. I'm going to be getting into that plank position. I'm going to be protracting my scapula, and I'm going to be holding that position for an extended period of time.